Hi, TackleDirect fans, Patrick Sebile here today, speaking about hyperlastic and specifically the wormspin. So, if you know already the dart spin, soft plastic body, a patent with a spring in the tail and a swivel, and then a willow blade. Well, pretty much the same principle right here. A soft plastic body made of soft stuff, and then the same patent as in the dart spin that holds very well, very strongly that spring into the tail, a swivel, and in this case, basically a Colorado blade. So if you like to cast a worm, for example, on top of grass in shallow water and just retrieve it straight, like it's very popular here in the state of Florida where I live, well, that's definitely a great worm to use, because not only you're going to be able to do that, you're going to have not an action from a paddle tail or a kind of curly tail, which is good action and catch fish, but in that case, something that makes much more turbulence and flash, which is the Colorado blade. Thanks to that material, I have different holes and slots, so actually very easy to unrig and very easy to rig properly every single time your worm spin, because we have the holes. So for example here, you see that's a long neck, what's the name? White gap hook, and you just put in the hole and you're ready to go, and the hook point is very protected in that cut in the back. It don't twist, don't tangle. It's great also at pitching and flipping. When you actually do that, the body have that great side motion, and the blade behind flutters. I just made sure to position the right amount of weight to not give too much speed, because into which you will dive fast and have the blade spinning. That's not what I wanted for this kind of action. So again, flutters, like a number of stick worms that you can just pitch or flip, and on top of that you have that fluttering motion. So cast and retrieve very straight. Now if you want to be weedless and fish very much on the top, then just use a white gap hook. In that case, what you can notice is this worm is mostly round all around, but have one side flat. So I very much recommend, because we have in the egg sac, we have a deep cut that goes right here, that you can put a strong wire hook, for example, if you fish with heavy braid, like 40, 50, maybe 65 pounds, who knows. The hook point will be totally hidden right here, and you have the hook exiting again that second hole. So you fish pretty much on the top. Now with the same hook, you can just go one more step, which is, well, Texas rig. Just have a bead, have your weight, like here a tungsten weight, for example, and now you have all the benefits that you can work and jig, you know, next to the bottom, or in suspended water if sometimes you need, or in logs and branch. You know, say you fish in a big lake that have a dam, and it's you know, you have a forest underneath the water. That's a great way to use the worm spin. Now the worm spin, of course, fits very well on a jig head and a wide range of weights. You know, you can fish pretty light and fish on the top. So if you have submerged structure or grass, say 1 or 2 feet deeper, just can go with open jig head like this, open hook. Now if you fish in saltwater, because most people will think about bass, and you're right, that's mainly a bass bait, freshwater bass, but in fact that's also a great bait for saltwater. So for fluke, for striped bass, calicos and more, you just can use the right jig head, the right amount of weight to fish, to cast at the distance and to retrieve at the right depth or into the currents where you're targeting your fish. That actually could be a great bait as well for walleye. You simply can attach to the eye a stinger, that means a treble hook, that will come somewhere here in the tail, and you have a great coverage whether you want to troll it or cast and retrieve for walleye. So you see a lot of things. Now, a bit going back to the first thing I was speaking about, which is cast and retrieving in shallow water, in place where you have a lot of grass in shallow water. Also, you can have you know, this kind of slender jig head with a weed brush. When you compare one and the other, if you're going to fish a bit with a lighter line, that will allow you for a better hooking ratio. Now, if you fish heavier lines, typically you will prefer to go with a white gap hook and a thicker wire. Now, just to finish that review about that worm stick lure, I want to show you and explain to you that that's also a finesse lure, really a finesse lure. Well, the lure comes with different holes and slots in different places, and including 3 holes here in the tail. So you can have just a single hook that you can hook through the hole. I mean, you can hook anywhere in the plastic, but when you hook through the hole, it allows for a better slide of the hook. So when you set the hook, when you hook a bass, for example, then the worm will slide more easily on the hook and even on the leader, and have much less risk to tear apart, and it will last you more catches than if you were simply hooking through the plastic. Now, what is the great thing about that? Well, two things. First, you can cast and retrieve it, and the worm will bend and actually will vibrate because that material is full of life. It's not the kind of super soft plastic. It's actually full of life and it vibrates. You can even add one of these weights at the end, and in that case you will retrieve it, and incredibly enough it will vibrate like a, guess what, lipless vibration bait, but that's a soft plastic worm. So it's great, really. Now the finesse approach I was talking to you about is if you use only your worm stick, the one hook, and no other weight. Now you can fish on, when bass are finicky or on the bed, you just can pitch or flip it and you let it sink with a semi-slack line. What will happen is the sinking part obviously is the blade and the swivel and the spring that is inside of the tail. So it will dive gently, the body have a little movement sideways, and the blade flutters all the way to the bottom. Once the blade will hit the bottom, it will land and stay like this. Now you can make a pause, and every time you will even very gently shake your rod tip, the worm will bend and will give all kind of crazy motion to the blade and stop again. So you can have a super finesse action, and actually adding a lot of flash and turbulence every single time you give a little rod twitch, and that makes that worm spin moving and the blade going a bit crazy. So that's a very, very unique worm that is named the Wormspin from Hyperlastics. Should give it a try, I believe so.